outreach ministry. We've met once, and we've pretty well already adjusted our target area to, instead of just looking at Eau Claire, to include the Pleasant Valley School District area, because that whole area is growing. It's not just LeClaire, it's also part of Bettendorf, and that's a huge area. We'll take a look at the demographics of that area when we meet again on the 24th. And the key population that we're going to be looking at is possibly those young professionals who are moving into that area. And we don't know what that looks like, and we're still discerning, but that's the first thing we're going to talk about. As Nathan said, 60% of people in Iowa are unchurched. That means they either have never been a part of a church or they got hurt at a church. One of those two. We are the only United Methodist Church on the Iowa side, from here to Eldridge, to McCausland, and to Comanche. Okay, those are the next United Methodist churches north of here and east. We're it. This is a terrific opportunity for us. There are United Methodist churches across the river in Port Byron and Silvis, but that stinking river is a barrier. People don't want to cross the river. So we've got an excellent opportunity here to reach into an area that does not have a United Methodist church. And so the key population, like I said, is we've kind of cheated a little bit and looked at 30 to 40 or 45-year-olds, which really cover 2 generations. But we're going to decide that and hone that down. And we will look some more on the 24th. Okay, I don't have any answers because we're still in the midst of that process. But that's going to eventually go to council, where we will take a look at our 2017 goal using the insights coming out of this ministry assessment group. Are there any questions? Here's where we're going to put on the accelerator, so buckle your seatbelts. You ready? Questions or insights? Yep.
Well, I will say something based on personal experience that 30 years ago when we moved here, we did not have the Hindu and the Muslim populations that we now have in Bettendorf. And you go to a lot of those new homes out in DP and knock on their door, and it's going to be an Indian family, it could be a Muslim family.
We have a lot of professional people moving in the area. And they're either Hindu, Muslim, or unchurched. I know that we've had in the last few years, have had a working relationship with Rivermont on the Hill. They've come down to Asbury, and we talk about Christian faith and practice. Last year, 7 out of the 10 had no affiliation with Christianity. None. Yeah.
When we moved here 2.5 years ago, we looked at 4 churches, including Asbury. The other 3, I don't know how to put this nicely, are definitely more dead than you are.
And that's good feedback to hear. Did you hear what Carol said? They looked at 4 different United Methodist churches, and this church was more alive. So be hopeful. Be hopeful, because really we have the gifts, graces, and all we need really is the way to figure out how to get the vision put in place and roll up our sleeves. All right, we're going to move on to making disciples. We're going to shift, and these are just going to be updates. One of the things you heard about this year is Our House Preschool closed. That's a ministry we've been collaborating with several other churches for the last 25 years or so. They closed because our partner churches, who were the financial pieces of that, were struggling and they couldn't financially do it. The numbers are going down because now we have public schools for 4-year-old preschool, and we own the house. So there was no reason really to hang on to the house, so we sold it, and we designated funds to go back into ministry in this way, to upgrade our sound video equipment for worship. And that's important because we need to be able to have a Facebook presence. We're going to talk about reaching young people. If you've ever gone on Facebook and listened to the sermons, you know what you'll hear? Our equipment is too small and it's outdated. And it's not a good quality presentation. So part of what we'll be doing not only will enhance our worship for those that are here, but hopefully enhance what we send out and put on the internet for other people to see. And that's important. The cost of that is going to be more than the $35,000, but at least $35,000 of the $45,000 is going to go towards that. The second piece is just as important, though. It's a place marker to buy ministry space for new ministry. Not for revamping what we already have, not for growing what we already have, but something new. That can be rent, that can be purchased. It's not a lot, but it's enough to get it started. And so that has been designated by this church. You guys did that at our last Charge conference. The other thing that is happening is you'll be hearing about discipleship pathways. Okay, now that's the R. We're still working on the R of that. It's a relational process that helps move people into deeper engagement with their faith journey. We spent a lot of time on programs in the past few years, a lot of time on management. Now we've got to really tweak that R. And so these are like the tendons for the body. They connect. Good discipleship pathways engage head, heart, and hands. And Michelle Sweeney, God bless her, is she here? I give her credit for this. She began looking at children's ministry and saying, you know what? We need to engage the parents beyond just getting involved in the programming. We've got to capture the parents. So she started with that understanding. She's exactly on target. So we need to look for ways to bridge and engage new people, to engage parents in ministries and also bridge them into their own spiritual pathway of growth, and to bridge children and youth from one age group to another so that we maintain and hang on to them, that they may continue in their own discipling journey. Let me give you 3 examples of how we've done that. And none of these are perfect, but they're very effective. We've already had a couple of bridging activities moving in our youth area. I know in the spring we had a middle school, high school event, so the 2 groups got together so that those moving into high school would get to know their youth group leaders. Just yesterday we had a middle school kids club event. Those new 6th graders coming out of kids club went out to Michael's Fun World. How fun is that? To begin to get to know each other. Now, we didn't have large numbers, but the whole point is to begin that bridging process. This year, the Garden Ministry did some really interesting ministry. They had an outing that invited families to come out and work in the garden. There's your ministry, hands-on ministry, but they also grilled hot dogs and gave playtime so that whole families could come out, connecting not just a particular age group, but connecting the whole family in ministry that was age appropriate for them. Okay? And the Grace event is another creative way. It's one of those new ministries. VBS is the old standard. It has not gone well here the last few years. It's been painful. Grace event is a way to take a look at how can we engage families. And we have an adult component to that. And you heard him talk about it this morning if in worship, or certainly the last few weeks. So those are some of the ways to kind of connect in family units to give age appropriate and yet at the same time so that each person can begin to gauge in their own age group and it's appropriate for them. Now, let me give you some other brief updates. The adult ministries continues to grow, and if you want numbers, you need to go talk to Linda. I don't have those numbers, but she can dig them up for you. It's continuing to grow. The LeClaire ministry is likely going to shift its perspective a little bit. We're waiting to see what's coming up out of the ministry assessment, and we'll probably end up expanding that into a Pleasant Valley area launch. The Africa University 2017 VIM trip, Volunteers in Mission trip, that's on hold. If you've been watching the international news, Zimbabwe's not terribly stable at this point. AU is very safe once you get there. The key is you have to get there, and then you have to leave there. And so we're kind of keeping an eye on that. In the meantime, we're continuing to support some of the ministries that we helped support while we were there, and we're continuing to send some funding there. PAC 80, I think this is awesome. That's our scout troop, or our scout pack. They're going to start meeting in Asbury this fall. That's awesome. So now we have an opportunity to interact with them in our own space. So if you see a group of Cub Scouts meeting, I think they're going to be here on Tuesdays, welcome them. Get to know them. Begin to interact with them. That's the relational piece. And our plans for Troop 80 are on hold. We had all the leaders and no scouts. So the timing is not right yet. We'll just keep that on hold. Any questions before we race to the next piece? Because we're getting close. All right. Let's take a look at systems thinking. We're talking about those administrative ministries. The primary role of management is to provide systems and structures that work in an integrative pattern to undergird the fulfillment of the vision and the implementation of relationships and programs. That's what administrative ministry does. Good administration, you can't see. It just happens, okay? That's your trustees, your finance, leadership development, stewardship, church council and PPRC and some other pieces of worship and discipleship. One of the big shifts that happened this year was a financial system shift. Kerrin Kraft retired last August, and we did not know what we had gotten into until we were there. There is a shortage of qualified accountants in the Quad City area, and so the going price for a qualified accountant was more than we could pay. But it caused us to do some creative thinking, and what we did is we hired out that hardcore accounting to Citric. And actually it's saving us a little money in the long term. We went to an online QuickBooks. We shifted auto deposit for payroll. Yay! The employees are happy about that. We restructured some of the accounts on QuickBooks because it wasn't quite set up the way it should be. Now I want to be really clear, this is not an issue for Kerrin Kraft. This is an issue for 1999 when we got it set up. That was long before Kerrin's time. But some of the accumulating shifts and changes just didn't get made. We found some inconsistencies in the system because of some outdated processes and procedures that were set up for a church that was very much smaller than we are now. So here's another of those systems that was too small for how big we were, and it was causing us some problems. And Gail's back there because she knows exactly what I'm talking about. What we've done then is we've divided the oversight of the expenses into ministry areas. So each ministry area is responsible and accountable for their own expenses. And there's an approval process that we have in place to make sure that everything is balanced. And it's not a I have to give my permission kind of approval, but an acknowledgement that this is a legitimate expense. Okay? And that double sign-off is really helpful. To that end, finance is now continuing to look at money processes. You noticed that today for the offering, the people who brought the offering up turned right around and left the sanctuary. Did you notice that? And that is to protect the integrity of the plate, because there are times that plate just sits on the altar until almost time for second service. Nobody's paying attention. So now it goes right from the altar, right on into the office, into a bank bag, locked away. And that just removes the temptation for someone to take advantage of that. Okay? We made some staff changes. Gail Hale now has an expanded job. She used to be secretary. Now she is financial manager, so she's your coordination person for any financial expenses or questions. She is also our social media coordinator, and that's a new step into the new world of the internet for us, and getting ourselves out there on Facebook. Nancy Weingartner just hired. Y'all pray for her. She's coming on board with the children's ministry director, and she thinks it's hard now. Wait till everything starts up in the fall. So pray for her. She's coming on board really well, and that ministry is going to do some very interesting takeoffs, if I know Nancy like I have come to know her. So welcome aboard. Social media. We're working to increase our social media presence. Worship committee advertised, was it Christmas Eve? I couldn't remember. Did we advertise Christmas Eve on Facebook? I think it was Christmas Eve. It didn't cost us much at all, and it went out to like 200 people. And much more effective than the newspaper. Because a lot of our young people, how many of our young people read newspapers? Not at all. The website, have you been on the website recently? That's continuing its changes to be more user-friendly. And our new sign out here really is a way to help people connect with at least a sense of humor, because Gail puts all kinds of fun stuff out there. We are not a dour group. We are a lot of fun. Infrastructure, that's that M, investing for ministry. It's just a summary. I want you to look at 2016. We got the mini splits installed. Did you notice the parking lot over here? It's been sealed and repaired. It's lined. And the city's going to come at the end of August and line this out. We've added 2 visitor spots that you can't tell yet because the lines are all goofy, but we'll get a sign out there and hope